Hey guys, welcome to the Titanium Vault. I'm your host, RJ Bates. Today I'm going to be going over my second book review, and I'm going to be reviewing Never Split the Difference and Profit First. Two books that come highly recommended by almost all entrepreneurs, specifically in the real estate investing world. I think the vast majority of you guys have read these books. I think in almost every post that I see on social media about what book should I read next, both of these books are at least mentioned once or twice by somebody. And so I finally got around to reading them. And I will say just right off the bat, for anybody that is in business or as an entrepreneur, I will recommend both of these books, okay? Now, that being said, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about each one of them and why I feel that way, and also give a little bit of criticism for both of them. So I want to start off with Never Split the Difference, which is written by Chris Voss with Tal Raz. So Never Split the Difference. Chris Voss was a former FBI negotiator. And the second part of the title is Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It. To a certain degree, I found this book to be, entertaining at times, but not quite as much as the book says, as if your life depended on it. I'm a huge fan of Extreme Ownership and the Dichotomy of Leadership, written by Jocko Willink. And the reason why is because of the storytelling within it. The examples that they use in those two books as, former Navy SEALs and what they went through in some of their, war stories, I guess is the best way to put it. They were very intense stories. The stories that Chris Voss tells as the FBI negotiator, sometimes he even leaves the story in the middle of it to point out either another story or tactics that he was using. And sometimes I felt kind of lost within what was actually happening. And at times, just to be quite frank, I didn't find the stories to be as capturing. Now, that being said, on the negotiating side of things, the actual tactics that Chris Voss uses in this book, I found them to be obviously tactics that are very successful. Some of these tactics are things that he created himself for the FBI. Going back to the beginning of the book, the worst chapter in the book is the first chapter. So you have to kind of push through that. That first chapter is essentially setting up the rest of the book. So if you find yourself a little bit bored in that first chapter, understand that I think almost everybody is. Just power through. I will also say I recommend listening to the Audible version of this book. Actually, both books that I'm going to be reviewing today. But you do also need to own a physical copy of the book, because there are going to be things within chapters that you're probably going to want to go back and review at another time, like specific chapters. Maybe you'll go through an actual negotiation within your business and you'll wish, hey, I wish I would have done this a little bit better. And he goes through mirroring someone during negotiations, labeling their emotions. Don't settle for yes, push for a no. Things like that, you're going to want to go back in a physical copy and actually read and not necessarily listen to, just to try to kind of eventually master that tactic. But throughout it, I will say another aspect of this book that kind of left me wanting a little bit more out of it was some of the tactics I felt were a little bit natural for me. So there are things, without reading this book, they were things that I already do within negotiations. And so at times it felt like I already understand this. I understand why we do this. But throughout the book, he still has to essentially teach that tactic, because maybe not everybody feels that way. Overall, though, I will say I learned a lot throughout it. And I even found myself, I was recently interviewed by Brent Daniels on the TTP podcast. And while I was being interviewed through it, I found myself quoting different tactics throughout it. And maybe that's because I was currently reading it at the time, but they are things that I was already doing as a closer or a negotiator. But I do think it stands out to me that while I was reading the book, I found myself referencing that, using some of the things that Chris talks about throughout the book. So overall, I give Never Split the Difference a 4 out of 5 stars. And I recommend it for anyone that is in any sort of business that incurs negotiations. There are things in this that maybe are not natural for other people, and it's a worthwhile read, and it will help you negotiate better. And that's the point in that book. The second book that I want to review today is Profit First. I don't have a physical version of this book. I only listen to it on Audible. I am going to be purchasing a physical copy of it. This book, Profit First, is written by Mike Michalowicz. And I will say, one of the reasons why I think that you should listen to Profit First on Audible in comparison to just reading the physical copy is because Mike's personality really comes out. He reads it himself in the Audible version, and his personality, I mean, sometimes a little bit borderline cheesy, but also adds an element of humor throughout the book. And overall, it's a pretty dry topic. I mean, we're essentially talking about accounting and bookkeeping and what you're going to do with your funds when they come in and how you allocate them to different bank accounts and things like that. So at times it can be a little bit dry. And so having Mike's personality there and just kind of hearing the passion that he has behind the purpose behind the book really stood out to me. And he truly believes this, and he uses examples in the Audible version of, hey, when I wrote Profit First, these were some of my first people that actually went out and implemented it. And he uses those examples of how, you know, several people got out of $1 million plus debt. They were running businesses that were not profitable, and now they are because of the Profit First techniques. And so I found overall, again, similar to Never Split the Difference, which is funny because when I decided to read these two books, it was, okay, I'm going to read Never Split the Difference. I'm going to read Profit First, and then I'm going to do a book review on both of them. That was the plan. I never really anticipated that the two would almost mirror each other in how I felt about them, especially considering how highly regarded they are among the entrepreneur space, as highly regarded as they are in the real estate investor space. And really, they're two different topics, right? One's about negotiations, and another one is about money allocation, bookkeeping, accounting, you know, I guess that's the best way, finances, essentially. And after reading Profit First, very similar to Never Split the Difference in the fact that these were already some of the tactics that we use within our company. So much so, I actually had to call my partner Elijah and ask him, like, did you read Profit First? Like, is that why we're doing some of our bookkeeping and accounting and how we allocate funds to different bank accounts the way we're doing it? And the answer was no. It was just kind of a system that we organically created ourselves, but it's very similar to the Profit First version. And essentially just breaking that down for you, I mean, the title says it all. He eventually wants you to get to a point that if whatever revenue comes in, he wants you to take profit first and put it in a profit account. And then he wants you to break out operating expenses and put that in an account, break out taxes and put that in an account, and essentially create different bank accounts for all of the different factors of your business. And so at the end of the year, you already know, hey, I've allocated X% of our revenue that's come in for taxes, and you're good to pay your taxes. And this allows the business to truly make profit at the end of the year. And he used an example, and this is one of those examples for any entrepreneur that's been in business for several years, this story will resonate with you. But he used an example of, he went and filed his taxes and his CPA said, hey, congratulations, you had a great year. You made X amount of profit. And Mike was like, awesome. Where's that money? And he's like, oh, well, you spent it along the way. I mean, you made the profit, but you don't have that money anymore. And that's when it kind of dawned on him, like, this is a problem. Like, I'm bleeding for this business. I'm killing myself to go out there and make this money, but we're not actually making the money. Like, where is it? Where did it go? And it was just going to different factors of the business and just being consumed within the cash flow of the business. And that's when he came up with the profit first method. And so I think it's something that can be adopted very easily, very quickly. As you're reading the book, it literally says, stop what you're doing right now. Take this action, which I loved. I wish Never Split the Difference had a little bit more of that. I mean, Chris did a really good job of breaking down chapter by chapter things that you could do during negotiations. But just reading the book from front to back over the course of a week, it did kind of start muddying the waters a little bit. And it's like, okay, at what point in time am I supposed to label the seller's emotions? And when am I supposed to try to get no? And when am I supposed to mirror? And if it's not something you're already doing, that's what I'm saying about never split the difference. You're really going to have to go back and reference those chapters and kind of work on each different technique as you grow as a negotiator. Profit First does a really good job of saying, hey, here we are. This is where you are in your business. Stop what you're doing. Take this action. Now move on to the next chapter, and then we can move on to the next action that I want you to take. So again, like I said, 4 stars for both books. I think they're a must read for any entrepreneur. Yes, there's going to be things within each of the books that you probably already understand and already are implementing within your business. But, push forward through those times. There's going to be a lot of really good, insightful, actionable items that you can take from each book. So I would highly recommend both of them. Really, truly just must reads. They're things that you have to know how to handle within your business. So I enjoyed both of them. And again, this is probably going to be rare for me to say this, but get the Audible version for both of them. Listen to them. Then buy the physical copies as well, so you have them to reference. They're that good of books. It's worthwhile spending the money on both versions. All right, guys, that's book review number 2 about Never Split the Difference and Profit First. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hope you're enjoying these book reviews. If you are, please let me know in the comments, okay? If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and give us a thumbs up. And if you're listening on the podcast version, make sure you give us a 5-star review. Remember, I only accept 5-star reviews. If you want to give us less than that, go give it to Steve Train. He loves 3-star reviews. All right, guys, we'll see y'all next week. Thank you.